This is a powerful revolution. It's really all outdated now.
You are listening to Active with your host Llewellyn King.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Active Voice, where we talk to executives about why they are executives, what raised them to that position, how they operate, what the challenges are, and what the rewards of the position are, what the dynamics of being a leader are. Today, we're going to ask these questions and others of Rudy Garza, Interim President and CEO of CPS Energy in San Antonio, Texas. And Rudy, welcome to the broadcast. It's good to see you. And would you like to tell us what CPS Energy is and how long you've been with them?
Thank you, Llewellyn, and I appreciate you having me on today. CPS Energy is the nation's largest municipally owned electric and gas utility. We serve primarily San Antonio and the Bexar County region, kind of in South Central Texas. We are the fastest growing community in the country right now in terms of population. We are growing in every direction. We have 1.2 million customers, a little under $3 billion in revenue, 3,000 employees, and again, we are very, very large players on both the electric utility side and the gas utility side. I believe Los Angeles DWP is the larger electric utility, publicly owned electric utility, and Philadelphia is the larger gas utility, but combined, we are the largest, and we're doing some great things. I'm proud to have been with CPS Energy for over 10 years now in a number of different functions, and over the last 7-8 months, I have been privileged to serve as interim president and CEO. So
you have an interesting background in that you didn't always work for a utility, although you are an engineer.
Yes, sir.
At one time, you worked for the city of Brownsville. Is that correct?
Corpus Christi. I'm originally.
I beg your pardon.
Corpus Christi. Yes, sir.
And what did you do there? It's rather interesting that you worked for a city because now you work for a company that is owned by a city. So it may give you some insight into the dynamics of city operation and city politics. Come to that.
Well, Llewellyn, that's we've had that conversation before. It's kind of fortuitous that after I spent 15 years with the private sector utility, my career took a detour for about 5 years. I was an executive assistant city manager down in Corpus Christi, which is my hometown. I did governmental affairs and a whole bunch of different business-related functions for the city. Did that for about 5 years, and then CPS Energy came calling. I got a call from a recruiter asking me to consider a position here, and I thought, what better way to combine a city hall experience with a utility background. For an entity like CPS Energy. I will say that having been inside a city hall operation makes it a lot. My perspective with dealing with our city owner here in San Antonio, I think is broadened significantly because I've been there. I've been in the role they are in as our owner regulator, and so I think it makes for a really great relationship that we have going right now between CPS Energy and the city.
What do you see as your strengths as a manager?
Well, I just spoke to a law firm here in town, their group at lunch today. And, for me, I lead with my heart, Llewellyn. I'm a people person. I want to empower my team. We're talking about a one team concept right now here at CPS Energy. Everybody has a role to play. My job is to put them in a position to be successful and then get out of their way by and large. I manage the board. I manage, the expectations of city council. I'm out in the community every day talking to folks about the things that we're doing here at CPS Energy, and I'm engaging, with our employees. And so, so for me, it's about servant leadership. It's about being a high communicator, a high touch, leader. But again, I don't ever want to be the reason that one of my team members feels like they're being held back. I want to enable them, give them the direction that they need, and let them do what they do best.
What do you think, or what would you like to be better at? In short, I'm asking you, what are your weak points?
Boy, that is a great question. Every day, the one thing that I'm actually proud of is the fact that I know for a fact that I don't know everything. And so for me, every day I learn more about the power generation side of the business. We've got to continue to improve on how we're interacting with the community. I've got to continue to be efficient in the management processes that I set up to help the organization, move and get things done. So, every day for me is a learning experience. I'm a young CEO. I'm in this seat for the first time. And so, I think my biggest asset is the fact that I know I don't know everything. And I'm working real hard to learn the things that I know I need to get better at.
There are two things that distinguish a utility. One, it has to be on all the time, 24/7, 365 days a year. You can't shut it down and try again. And that is a very significant dynamic. The other one is that the utility industry is in change. It's going from a fossil fuel-based industry to one that is largely renewable and in a huge fundamental change, the largest change it has had in its history, probably. And you're right in the middle of that. How much pressure does that put on you?
Well, again, when you've been in the business for 30 years, reacting to outages that are going on in your system and dealing with emergencies, you learn to do it with grace and with urgency, but to not lose your senses in the process. And so I think my background in the industry, kind of makes me, at least gives me the right balance of understanding that you got to take each challenge as they come and do the best you can in the moment.
What is your rate of growth?
Well, so for us, again, we're the largest growth community in the country. We're growing by, I want to say about 15,000 people a year, but we're going to see probably 1 million new San Antonians coming into our community over the next 15 years or so. In terms of load growth, in terms of customer growth, we're about 2% a year. In terms of load growth, we're about 1% a year, primarily due to our energy efficiency and conservation, program. So, there are a lot of utilities they're in the single digit, they're in 0.8%, 0.5%. We're actually up, over 2%. So we're high growth by any measure.
And is that growth evenly distributed? Is the growth in gas the same demand as the growth in electricity?
Yeah, I mean, we are growing in gas. I don't know that it's exactly the same growth. Electricity, not every electric customer is a gas customer. We have about 880,000 electric customers, about 360,000-ish gas customers. So, we're probably growing a little faster on the electric side than on the gas side. And we're doing a lot of capital programs on the gas side to try to extend our pipeline system out into the outer reaches of our, service territory. So the growth that's happening on both sides, probably a little bit more on the electric side.
CPS Energy prides itself as a technology leader, and indeed you've made huge strides in going to solar power, which is both fitting to the part of the country and clean energy source. Tell me about your solar commitments and how much of your load is solar.
Sure. So right now we have roughly 600 megawatts of our generation portfolio is solar. Probably represents, maybe a little under 10%. We've got another 1,200 megawatts of wind as well. We just signed a 300 megawatt solar deal with Con Edison over in a little east of of San Antonio, which we're really excited about. And we have 600 more megawatts of solar contracts that we're working on closing out right now that will take us up to about 1,500 megawatts of solar. So we're real bullish in solar. We're the number one solar, purchaser of solar power in the state of Texas, number 5 in the country. And I think we'll move up in the coming years as we get these projects done. So we know how to operate solar as part of our portfolio, and we're going big in that direction.
What is the shape of your load? If you think of it as a shape, is it
Sure.
does it follow the traditional high demand in the morning, high demand at night, less demand during the day, or do you have enough industrial and commercial to change that shape?
Now we've got a pretty significant, it's kind of low in the morning. It peaks up, around 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon into the evening, it's 6-7 o'clock, and then it comes back down and into the evening. So, we're an afternoon peaking organization here. That's when it's going to get to 100 degrees. And, and so we're pretty good at managing, and quite frankly, as part of management of that load, we have a very significant amount of demand response capacity here in San Antonio, about 250 to 270 megawatts. So we can hit a button and our customers respond with lowering their consumption, and that allows us to kind of shave that peak off, in the late afternoon, evening time, which, we feel pretty good about. So
demand energy response is something the public as a whole does not understand. It is the management of the load by a cooperation between the consumer and the producer. The people who are helping you most, are they commercial, are they industrial, or are they residential, or a mixture?
Well, the answer to that question is yes. It's a mix of all of it. We've got probably close to 200,000 customers on the residential side that have thermostats that we can actually, control. They sign up for a program, they get a benefit of cooperating with us in that regard. But we'll send a signal and increase their air conditioners up a couple of degrees when we need it. And that lowers demand across the system, along with the commercial and industrial load that's able to move to backup generation or stop operations. So when you add it all up, it's about 250, 270 megawatts. There's only in the entire state of Texas outside of San Antonio, about 350 megawatts of capacity. So when you compare San Antonio relative to the rest of the ERCOT market in Texas, we feel real good about our demand response capabilities here.
That's very interesting. Do you incentivize your demand response partners? Is it a financial incentive? Is it a lower rate, or
yes,
how
sir.
does that work?
Well, we're selling that, we're basically, through ancillary services market in ERCOT, we actually are able to send a signal saying, okay, we're going to give you back 250 megawatts and we get paid for that. And we share the financial upside of that with our customers. Yes, sir.
At one point, you were looking for ideas for storage. You sent out a request for ideas. I don't know how you phrased that, but you got a lot of things, many of which focused on batteries and well-known storage technologies. But were there new and exciting departures?
Well, we would like to get 50 megawatts worth of battery storage into our portfolio as part of what we called our Flex Power Bundle initiative. We've honestly had some trouble getting those deals papered, mainly because there have been supply chain issues, with getting those batteries, at a cost that our counterparties, felt good about. And so we're still working on it. I believe we will get some battery storage done, but it's been a little slower go than the solar deals that we've been working on. I'll tell you what, we actually slowed down on the solar side as well. But recently, President Biden basically created a 2-year moratorium on the tariffs that were impacting the solar industry. And since he did that, a lot of our solar contracts have been able, to move forward. So we're still struggling a little bit on the battery side. But as soon as the battery, suppliers are willing to, to give us a price that we can depend on, we'll get those deals done and get those batteries in place.
Across the board, how much storage do you have? How important is storage to you? Or does your load fit the solar generation so well that de facto helps you out of a bind there?
Well, we did a pilot program with the 10 megawatt battery, 5 megawatts solar system paired together at the Southwest Research Institute here in San Antonio. And, we learned a lot about how to pair renewables up with batteries and able to actually extend, that capacity across the peak to help manage. Again, in the current environment and going into the future, there's going to be a lot less big power plants built and a lot more smaller kind of peaking capacity renewables, batteries, kind of paired together, and that'll help you kind of manage your risk on how high your peak actually goes. So what we've learned with that pilot project is what led to us putting out a RFP for 50 megawatts worth of battery storage, which we will pair at the end of the day with a renewable resource, so that we will have a bigger capability to be able to dispatch that battery power, capacity when the peak is high. And so for us, that's really a game changer. Once you can pair batteries with renewables, now you've got a base load kind of resource that you can plan to.
You are listening to Active Voice with your host Llewellyn King.
What is your generating mix? You still have a bit of coal.
We still have,
quite a
yes,
lot
sir.
of natural gas. Was being in Texas, that's hard to avoid, right?
Right. Yes, sir. We probably the biggest percentage right now is natural gas. We still do have coal plants that we're working on a plan to try to get those retired early, which is what our community is wanting us to do. We've got nuclear that we really rely on, as kind of the foundation of our portfolio that runs all the time. About 1,100 megawatts of nuclear capacity at our South Texas project. And, we're doing solar, we're doing wind, we've got some landfill gas. So CPS Energy has always been committed to a diverse portfolio strategy, and we will continue to be committed to a diverse portfolio strategy. It's just the way we diversify will change from fuel diversity, which is what we traditionally, the utility industry has relied upon, to more technology diversity. Now we're going to be looking at geothermal, hydrothermal, and some other resources that we think have some promise to help carry us into the future, because we still need to be able to rely on multiple resources to serve our community affordably.
How much are you being impacted by supply chain congestion?
Well, Llewellyn, I will tell you that every day the list that I get from my supply chain folks grows. Now we're up to about 4 pages worth of equipment and supplies that are in the red, meaning that's 20 days or longer lead times to get it in. It started to impact our growth here in San Antonio to a bit. We're kind of managing the shortages of meters and cable and transformers on the electric side in a pretty good way. But we recently had some issues with some gas supplies that we need to manage growth here in San Antonio. So, like other utilities, we're all seeing the same pinch on the supply side. I think we've managed it maybe better than the average utility across the industry, but certainly we're seeing the effects of it.
And what kinds do you sit on the gas side? Is this pumps? Is it seals? Is it pipes?
It's pipe. It's our risers that come up, out of the ground to connect the meter to. Even our regulators we're having to take old regulators and rebuild them the way we used to, rather than order new ones. And basically recycle them. So we're getting kind of creative in how we're meeting this challenge, but it's kind of bread and butter equipment that we use every day that we're starting to have trouble with.
That's what I'm hearing. I was talking to an engineering company, and they said that they had problems with things as simple and elementary as bolts. They weren't able to get the bolts they needed. And on the high end, they couldn't get lift trucks for 47 months. That's an enormous delay.
Yes, sir. And we're seeing the same thing. We're on the phone weekly with our trade associations, the American Public Power Association, American Gas Association, the Large Public Power Council. We've all developed working groups to try to share information and really grow our supplier base, which we have to do together as, in cooperation with each other.
That's very interesting. You, of course, like all utilities in Texas, suffered terribly during Uri a year and a half ago. What were the lessons you learned, and what are you doing today to reduce the vulnerability which was apparent then?
Well, I kind of bucket our lesson learned into three areas. Number one, the way that we prepare our plants for the summer and winter peaks has to be more uniform. So, a lot of the maintenance work that we do, that we used to do across the entirety of, the winter season, we're now having to squeeze into windows between kind of September and, January and, March to May. And it's created a squeeze on the entire industry. You're competing for supplies, you're competing for contract resources, you're competing, for services to refurbish your turbines when you need to do that. And so the way that we maintain our plants has changed to make sure that we're available during the extremities of the summer and winter peak seasons. That's number one. Number two, the way we manage controlled outages, if and when ERCOT finds themselves short of supply, and you have to proactively reduce load to match the available supply across the system, we needed to reprogram that to take into account the type of event we saw during Uri. So now we can manage outages in San Antonio in coordination with ERCOT in a way that allows us to meet some of these higher extreme weather events, which was a problem last time. That's why you had people out for days, was because our system wasn't ever intended to deal with the peak of that size. And finally, the way we communicate with the public, being proactive about the things that they need to do to protect themselves becomes really, really important. So our communication is kind of that last piece of that.
To what extent do you feel battered by public opinion? There are people who think that you can close every gas generator tomorrow. There are people who think that you're a criminal if you're burning coal. And there are people who think that wind and solar are just a nonsense and that climate change is not for real, even as we endure unbelievable heat and unbelievable cold. How does that pressure affect you?
Well, every decision made has to be in balance, Llewellyn. We've got, first off, whatever we do, I have to be reliable, number one. I've got to keep, to your point at the beginning of this segment, I've got to keep the lights on, and I own that responsibility. Not anybody who has an opinion of how we do what we do. I own it, which means that I've got to do it in a way that I can ensure reliability, which our customers expect first and foremost. And then I've got to do that affordably. I got to do it in a way that our customers can afford to pay their bills. And then I can do all the other things, moving away from coal, bringing in more renewables in our system. I can do those things as long as I meet those first two expectations, primarily. And so I want to be the most forward-thinking utility company we can be. We just have to be thoughtful. I can't turn off plants and snap my fingers and solar capacity, come up, be available.
That's very
overnight.
Interesting. You can't do what any other industrial operation can do, which is to shut down for a couple of months and retool and reorganize.
Exactly right.
But the other thing is this affects management too.
Sure.
You can't issue decrees that we will not work on Fridays, or we will shut down this, or we'll do that, in the way that other managers can, other executives of other industries that can issue orders that change things overnight. you can't do that because of the larger discipline of keeping the lights on. Does that modify your range of movement as a manager?
Well, it does because, again, the one thing that will never change about the utility industry is the planning that goes into, our decision-making horizon, in the future. Now, we're not making decisions anymore to build plants that are going to go out 50 years. Now we're kind of dealing in 5 to 10 year increments, while the utility industry changes. We're in the broadest change in our industry that we've ever seen, maybe from the onset of Thomas Edison, inventing it. And so we have to be nimble. We have to, to make reasonable investments that then you can scale up to ensure you understand what the impact on your system is going to be and whether or not you can maintain reliability. And then once you prove that up, you can go and make, the investments that you need to make. But while
Rudy,
you're in the transition,
Rudy, what is your management structure? How does it operate? There's you, or do you have vice presidents, assistant vice presidents?
I've got a right now, because I'm in the interim role, I don't have a chief operating officer. I'm the de facto CEO and COO because it's hard to bring in a COO when you're in an interim role. So right now I've got about 11 direct reports, leaders that have different parts of the business. I've got kind of 4 operational leaders, and then a CFO, a CIO, and other leaders that run other parts of the business. The chief legal officer, chief administrative officer, and so my job is to bring us together to make decisions and then let them go do their thing. And what we're trying to do is stay focused on the things that we absolutely have to get done over the next 3 to 5 years. I put a 5-year strategy together that whether it's me or another CEO that our board hires, I'm going to hand them, that strategy, whether it's me or not, because it's the right strategy. It's a strategy.
How often do you wants in your utility? How often do you check the state of play? How often do you get everybody today and say, we did great last week, we sold more solar and we're able to use DER to do this, but we had a little bit of a problem out in so-and-so with gas turbines. How often do you take the temperature of the organization?
Every day, Llewellyn. We have an operations call every morning at 8 o'clock where we come in and talk about the things that happened yesterday or the things that we're expecting, to happen today and into the week. And then every afternoon, my direct reports and I get on a call to touch base, just to update ourselves on the things that are going on that we need to be aware of. So we, part of my management structure, we talk often and we talk about things that are real that are going to help us be the best we can be.
I was talking to an engineer the other day, and she said that she had worked in several utilities, and there was nothing more exciting than how the organization came together in a crisis, an outage or a prospective outage, a very high peak forming or something like that, which is surprisingly analogous to a newspaper. A newspaper, big newspaper, is in some ways similar. First, we have 2 meetings a day in a big newspaper, an early conference and a late day one to see what's going to go in the paper, the early one to what's happening, and also what went wrong the day before. And then that great sense of excitement if the news is big. And I was struck by this strange similarity. The newspaper has to come out, the lights have to stay on, and there are peaks of joy and depths of sorrow or valleys of sorrow.
Sure.
That I find very interesting. People don't see a utility as being dynamic and in emotional flux in that way. But they are, in fact, very exciting places to work, are they not?
Yes. Well, the main thing, the biggest similarity between the news business and the utility business is you're 24. The news never sleeps, right? The power company never sleeps. It's a 24/7, 365 operation, and every day is a new opportunity to either succeed or fail based on the processes you set up, to manage your business. And so, so I think that's a really interesting, draw comparison.
You have one discipline that we do not. Nobody dies if we don't get the newspaper out. People die if the utility fails to deliver people who are going to stress either from cold or heat or because they're on medical appliances, etc. The large issues that the ones that are up there in the high part of the wings that sometimes we hear about, electromagnetic fields, the Carrington effect, this kind of thing. The idea that maybe the grid would come down because of cyber attack and that people would be in terrible shape. To what extent do those bugaboos bug you?
Well, those are the things that keep me up at night, quite frankly, Llewellyn. A bad actor that drops an EMP bomb, that takes out every transformer in my system, that's a risk. It's a risk that we're actually partnering with the military on to create some technologies that we might be able to use to ensure resiliency on critical infrastructure. I have to plan. I mean, Yuri taught us that nothing is a black swan, anymore. Anything can happen and likely will happen at some point in time, put in the wrong bad actor's hands. I've got to prepare for not just to prevent, but for the likelihood that a cyber attack is going to happen on my system at some point in time. And so not only how am I going to try to prevent it, but when it happens, not if it happens, how am I going to deal with that to ensure that I can get my system back?
I take that like other utilities, you get attacked all the time.
Yes, sir. Every day.
And you have systems that repel the attacks. How many attacks a day do you get?
Thousands. We like everybody else, we get phishing emails and tests of our perimeter all the time. We've actually invested with our partner agencies here in San Antonio, including the NSA and the FBI and our local government officials in an Alamo area security operations center, where we all come together and share information on active threats that we know are out there that are trying to do us harm. So we have a really good cooperation here in San Antonio in that regard.
That's very interesting. What are the other worries that you have?
Well, right now, supply chain worries me. If you have that one piece of equipment that you absolutely have to have, that's going to allow you to restore power. I'm not even worried about the new growth. I can manage the timelines there. What I'm worried about is I lose that one major transformer that I don't have a spare on, and I can't find another one to replace it. Because then, now I'm having to probably reconstruct systems in some new way that's going to take, probably, days to recover from. So supply chain worries me, and just the rate of evolution. I'm trying to match right now internally. I'm trying to match the expectations from the community, which sometimes are reasonable and lots of times are unreasonable, with the change management that has to occur inside the organization to allow us, to match our capabilities with the community expectation. That is not an easy. You're kind of fighting, battles on two fronts. And I got to have.
I would imagine. I can really see that. Tell me, we're coming towards the end of our time together, I'm sorry to say. Tell me about Rudy the man. What you do, something about your family and your recreations.
Right. Well, I have a beautiful wife that is a teacher now, as an administrator, who I don't deserve. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I've got two wonderful sons. One is a freshman at TCU, studying business and wants to go to law school. And I got a high school junior that's about to be a senior, who has it all in front of him right now. So outside of work, which takes, when you get into the CEO's role, you do what it takes to be successful. And so I do what I need to serve the organization and the community when it needs me, and when I'm not here, I'm there, taking care of my family.
You are a Texan, so you must have some inclination for hunting and fishing.
Hunting, fishing, I play golf. Typically if it's not 105 degrees like it is right now, I am outside doing something that I enjoy doing on a weekend afternoon.
Talking to somebody in Austin yesterday, and I think it was 105 degrees, and he was lamenting the fact that it was a golf day, that he had been looking and he wasn't going to play golf. And
I don't golf in 105 degrees.
At 105 degrees. It's been a great joy talking to you, Rudy. It's always a pleasure working with you. Good
Well,
luck.
and I appreciate your friendship and appreciate you having me on today, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, sir.
Cheers.
Cheers. Goodbye.
Bye.